Hi everyone, my name is Nicholas Kotzer. I'm a technical specialist here at K2. I'm very excited to be giving you a brief overview as to some of the integration work that we've been doing around Project Server 2010 and how we can use K2 to more efficiently manage and coordinate projects created inside of Project Server. Just to give you a brief overview for those who haven't heard of K2, we're a worldwide company headquartered in Redmond, very close to Microsoft, and we've been a leader in the .NET workflow world. So anyone looking to create process-driven applications and solutions will use our platform because we give you the full capability set around creating the processes as well as managing the end-to-end solution. So essentially what you create on top of our platform is left up to your imagination. Today's session is going to give you a good idea as to how we could coordinate and manage projects with close integration with Project Server. But we do have other examples, obviously around things, finance systems like invoice tracking, HR processes like leave requests, expense claims, and appraisals. And these are just a few ways in which people are using our software. We are a global ISV for Microsoft, so we are managed and we keep very aligned with the Microsoft roadmap. So as Microsoft technologies evolve, the likes of Office and SharePoint and Project Server, we keep up to date with that roadmap, and we actually have a lot of input as to how Microsoft evolves those products. What you're about to see today is actually a culmination of the involvement of our community. If you go to k2underground.com, we've got over 7,000 registered K2 users and developers, and because of our pluggable architecture, actually our community drove the integration with Project Server. That component became available, and we now have integration to drive Project Server from a controlled process. This is one example of many of the community initiatives which often get brought into the product stack over time. The challenge with projects, and specifically the information inside of Project Server, is that it's a very good tool for what it does. We can define tasks, resources, and in the context of a process. But how those tasks get managed and how we can visually monitor the project end to end and its health, that's what K2 brings to life. So we'll use Project Server, what it's good for, but then we use K2 for the more human element side of things. So actually assigning people tasks and ensuring that they can action those tasks in a friendly format, not having to understand the complexities of systems where information resides. So other challenges include lack of predictability as to how a project gets managed, making sure things are going to be signed off correctly. So lack of sufficient communication about events, so if things are going off plan, resources are moving between projects, we want to flag those issues and be aware of them as they're happening, and give people notifications and alerts when anything's going sort of off track as to how we expected. And obviously customers and end users are not often engaged during the project in a coordinated way with the out-of-the-box features that you get with Project Server. So we can make sure that there's a structure and a way for ensuring project success. K2 solution for automating project management processes is actually a combination of an underlying process that works with the Project Server tasks to create tasks for people. We have our own forms, so we can lay out and put whatever validation inside of those forms as we please. We can make them as friendly to the end user as we like. Business objects that understand the business, so the likes of having employee information, who manages who, Project Server information, what tasks are within a project. We can bring all that together in a coordinated way, and then we can also report on this information, and we've got graphical designers to create and orchestrate workflows, how we want our projects to flow from end to end. So people don't just want, for example, projects to execute 100%, they also want to be able to learn from their lessons, and we can even bring that into process design. So the key feature of the solution allows for codeless retrieval and updates of Project Server 2010 data. We don't have to be developers to understand how to retrieve data, how to work with data inside of Project Server. Everything's done for very graphical, intuitive wizards from the K2 world. And then what we get out of the box is complete audit trail, who started what projects, issue management over time, and we have workflow context around a project in the collaboration area for a project so people can work with information. Included in the process is the ability to manage risk as well as closure processes. So do we want to initiate a continuous improvement cycle around lessons learned for a project or individual tasks so that we can improve on how projects and tasks are done better going forward. So what K2 allows us as well to do, which we wouldn't get definitely out of the box using any of the out-of-the-box SharePoint or project server process abilities, is to facilitate modeling workflows, taking into account what may seem like simple workflow decision-making logic. So we can actually, what you'll find very quickly, things like rework, if someone's doing a task and we want to assign it to someone else, that becomes very hard to do very quickly with the out-of-the-box tooling that you get with Project Server and SharePoint. We can also take the concept of an approval and do work with roles of people. So if we've got a role of consultants, someone can pick up a task, or if someone needs to sign off on a task, we can define rules around, do we actually need 3 people to approve it, or 1 person to decline it before it actually goes down a certain route within the workflow execution. And the same applies if we need to do actions and tasks that involve people in serial. So if it needs to go through a series of people and events in order to get signed off and approved. So those sort of requirements in workflow design come up all the time, and even our competitors don't have easy solutions to those basic workflow requirements. So the project server integration allows us to involve project information from project server within our wizards. So if we want to drive SharePoint, if we want to send, for example, here's a mail notification to someone, we have all the information from project server on the right, and we drag and drop that information in. You never have to work with the code behind in creating and these processes that execute, and the workflow layer will execute how you want the process to go through from start to finish. So just to sort of nail down what we do have with regards to our project server integration, we have the ability to we call them services, to interrogate project information inside a project server. We can get task information related to those projects, and we can get resources that are assigned to tasks within the context of a process. So in using and building up this demonstration for today, and to show you what solution we can provide, we take all this into account when creating tasks. We can see when that task must start, when it should finish, so we can do things like escalations if someone hasn't performed a task on time. And we can actually use the out-of-the-box project server resourcing to do the task assignment. So the end user has a familiar tool in which to allocate tasks out inside a project server. So just a very quick overview. To the end user, what they will see is K2 will create a collaboration area. It's actually a SharePoint site, so we do make use of SharePoint with the solution. And within this site, we will see all the assets related to projects, whether it's documents, comments, the health and indication of that project, an overview as to all the tasks, who's got those tasks, how far they are completed, and we can have that visibility in various formats. So if I was new coming onto a project, because some projects are obviously long running and span weeks, months, even years, I can get an overview as to things that have happened. I have access to all the project documentation inside of this area. And that's what SharePoint's very good for, is we can put versioning control in documents, and so people make changes, especially with SharePoint 2010. You can even have multiple people collaborating on this information at one time. And we'll still make use of the out-of-the-box project server functionality for determining availability of resources. So we don't try reinvent the wheel. Project Server is still very good at this. So we keep those reports inside of Project Server. We're merely driving the data so that that information is kept up to date from a controlled process. We can see availability and completeness of tasks. So the benefits that you'll find is that you don't require any system integration development. So it's not a a developer with specific knowledge as to how to program against the likes of SharePoint and Project Server. It's someone who knows those systems and can configure wizards to know how they want them to execute. So we're going to use out-of-the-box reporting, Project Server reporting, and K2 reporting to do trends and bottlenecks and also determine availability. And we'll have KPIs as to project progress, and so management will automatically be flagged when something's wrong within any of our projects. So the K2 solution components comprise of the forms, the workflow, the out-of-the-box reports, the business rules as to how we want the processes to execute, and SharePoint web parts for the dashboards and views on task information related to a project in one uniform location, which is within a SharePoint site. We now have better control on the initiation of projects, so we can also take the user through a cycle of getting the project approved before we even actually kick off the tasks of signing the task to the resources. I know if there's going to be any sort of budget spend within the company, we need to have almost a dual level sign off. Finance always wants to make sure that that there's not space within the organization for fraud or anything like that. So we want someone from sort of finance to sign off on projects and capital expenditure. And we can also track and audit the project management process, which allows IT departments to more accurately plan the resources and identify the bottlenecks within the processes. And then K2 tooling allows you to optimize and improve and manages versioning control. So we'll have predictability, consistency, auditability, which obviously is going to improve quality and reduce risks inside of our project management. And a key feature that you'll see come out today is also the ability to extend the solution for ad hoc activities. So what do we're at a particular stage within a project. Do we want to allow users to maybe cancel the project within mid flow, or do we want them to raise an issue? These are sort of sub activities that relate to the project, but they're obviously not defined within the core structure. But we can, with the framework that allows us to incorporate these into the project site. So we've already chatted about the predictability. We can bring in the service level agreements into the process design. And then we can surface escalations in the form of updating key performance indicators, sending email notifications or SMS requests. So it reduces the need for costly follow-up and delays and people having to search for information. So now that we have a predefined process for guiding our project end-to-end, K2 will standardize everything around how projects execute, and there's a set way for viewing and understanding project success and communication between project members. So we're going to go into a brief demonstration now where you'll see all this come to life. For the demonstration, I've created a portal area whereby a project manager can track their actively running projects. You'll notice within this particular page we're going to be logged in as particular users accessing a centralized project area, which will be the same for all users. You can obviously configure which reports and graphs are available to particular users based on the out-of-the-box SharePoint features for audiences and security. So on this particular page, we have a K2 work list. This is a global work list where users receive tasks for all processes, so they'll get their project tasks as well as any other tasks associated to processes that have been automated within the organization. Because this is our project portal, I can see all my actively running projects, and I've got a good level indication as to how they're performing, and I can drill down into those particular projects and gain visibility as to who's performing what tasks within a particular project. To initiate a new project, I've got some of the project server functionality here at the top as available as quick links. So for example, Project Center, which may or may not be familiar to those of you who work inside a project on a daily basis, is this is where you define your projects. So this is out of the box functionality provided by Microsoft Project Server, and everything's web based, hosted inside of SharePoint. Here, for example, I've got a project called Implement the Onboarding Process. So if we are a consultant company and we need to automate a process for another company, this is a project that I'm undertaking. So I can go ahead and start assigning tasks. I'm obviously not going to spec this project out to the nth degree. We'll just put in some simple tasks like documentation, and we can define a start date and a finish date. The start date and finish date are fairly important because K2 will actually use these variables when defining when tasks must start and people get those items in their work list. For finish dates, that will affect things like the service level agreements. So once that finish date's been hit and the task has not been completed, we can send out email notifications or change the KPIs on the reporting. We can also expand this out and include a resource. Also extremely important because K2 accommodates dynamic task assignment based on variables held in external systems. So for example, the information about who's performing this task is held inside a project server. We can use that information in our K2 process. So someone will have to document the process, then someone will have to implement the solution. And that will most probably be a different user than the person who documented it. I'm just putting the start date as the same date and time today because I want to actually complete this process obviously within the next ideally 10 minutes or so. So Eric is going to be our consultant, and someone needs to go and test the solution or go through a testing phase, and then we can go and sign off the project. So these are sort of typical project steps that you'd go through for the life cycle of managing any project. And this will be done by a lady called Holly. I actually have some quick link icons on my desktop here to log on as those particular users. So you'll see there Erica, Holly and Chad, and I've even put in what their sort of role within the project lifecycle is next to it. There's also going to be a project manager, and I can set that project manager inside of Project Server. So for this particular project, you can see here you can click next. So we can actually define, on this page we define the task, but on the next page you can actually define things like who's the project owner, and we can use that metadata information about the project so that sign off for each one of those stages, a notification of completion of those stages will go to that particular project manager. In this instance, we can see that Sean has been set as the owner. We can obviously browse and configure based on our Active Directory users a different project manager. I'm quite happy that this project's complete. So if I go back to the previous page, so here I'm just confirming the project details. And what I recommend for you to do is actually publish these details, because once you publish something in Project Server, we'll actually allocate the resources to the tasks. So here we go, I'm just going to go and click publish. That'll update all the out-of-the-box reports that you get for Project Server, and it's obviously very important that you actually publish your changes. I often just go to project, and once I'm happy, I click save and close. Then ask you if the project's checked out. You don't want to check it in. I'm going to say yes. The solution actually checks in the tasks and project for us anyway, to avoid there being any conflicts when initiating a K2 process against checked out Project Server tasks. So there I've used a tool that's best fit for purpose, and what's quite nice about this approach is that could become a template for all projects. So I could kick off that same project more than one time to actually have it running and implemented within our organization. So as people change, I could just go and change resources and sync it up to Project Server. So to actually, like I said, kick off the project and make it active up until that particular point, I've just been planning the project. This is a very common approach where actually you want to have your tasks and stages associated and defined in a tool like Project Server. I've come across those requirements quite a few times before, but we actually need a tool to automate it and manage the project in terms of driving it end to end. And that's where K2 fits in. It's very good at involving people within inside of those processes and taking it through a formal structure end to end. So I'm going to start the project request, and what that's going to do is going to open up a ASP.NET form. This is actually a SharePoint task form inside of right inside of our page here, I can see the project from Project Server. So there's a drop down of those 4 projects from Project Server. There's the implement onboarding process. So you can see these forms can interact with our Project Server information through our K2 Smart Objects. So here I can now actually upload additional supporting documentation. Before we actually kick off the project, we want to ensure that, for example, there's budget, there's resources available, and we want to take it through approval before it actually gets initiated and we send consultants on site. So hopefully it's like that with most organizations where there's some level of control of sign-off for projects being undertaken. So I can say this is justification as to why we want to have the project. This is a typical K2 deployment, and obviously something we do day to day as a consultancy firm. So I've now started a K2 process, and it's going to go through some approval. So it's not going to involve Sean, who's the project manager yet. This is going to go and send a task to our finance manager. And if you have a look at our quick link shortcuts here, so we've got a finance approval and also someone who double checks the availability of our resources. So the finance approver, he for example maybe doesn't even look at that project site day to day. He's inside of his own finance systems. So through Outlook, we've just sent him an email notification of the fact that a new project request has been requested. So if I go and click send and receive, we can see a new item's arrived for us to review. We can define a nice HTML template inside of the K2 designers for these emails as well, so we can put your company branding on it. This is just a link to the item for him to action approving the project. So K2 will always redirect the user to the right page. In this instance, it's taking them to the portal, and it's going to load up a page bringing in all the information about this particular project. So here's the project documentation. So I can go and download a copy of that to review. This document, for example, is being stored inside of SharePoint. I don't need to know as a project or as a finance approver that this document's in a particular document library. It's on this page, is available as a quick link icon. So therefore, obviously, this document was a Word document. So it's going to open up Microsoft Word. SharePoint supports all document formats. And if it was a PDF, it would just open up a PDF reader. And with the 2010 SharePoint 2010 web apps, a lot of this sort of information is even available through a browser. So this was a document I'd created earlier where it just outlined the resources, the budget, and the revenue. I'm sure you'd have a template around defining a project so that meant something to a particular user. The idea is that that document's available, the information that was submitted is available, and I can make a decision. So if I go ahead and approve it, that doesn't actually approve and kick off the project. Is dual level sign off. So K2 caters for being able to do tasks in parallel and serial, and we can actually accommodate and assign rules for the fact that we want 2 people to approve it before it moves on. So if I go now and close down our Outlook and log in as the availability reviewer, this user does like to work inside of our project portal because we've got all the quick link icons to the out-of-the-box project server reports for resourcing and availability. So I've got some links here at the top to view all availability, my availability. I want to obviously view the availability of the team members associated to this particular project. And you can see I can review Chad, Erica, and Holly, have a look at their resource assignments and their availability. So resource assignments is quite a nice out-of-the-box report by project server. You'll get a high-level indication if there are any clashes. In this instance, I can see these tasks are quite isolated from any other projects that this user is working on. The resource availability is also a good one because it provides the ability to track our resources by project and other variables. So same as before, I can select my users, go to the resource availability tab. And we can see here our 3 users. There's a nice legend here. I can specify date ranges. I can view the information in tabular format. There's also the options to view by project, by resource, and remaining availability. So the nice thing about this whole solution is it's there's no custom reports. Everything's out of the box. So if I go back to our project portal, I'm quite happy with the resourcing. I can see there's no clashes. I can also see my task on my K2 work list. So with all K2 tasks, all you need to do is double click on the item in the work list. I'm now logged in as Mark and I can approve this item. So same form as before, because it is the exact same form. Remember, we're just waiting for dual level sign off. I now approve this task, and now a project is going to be created and a collaboration area will be made available so that users can add documents, comments on an ad hoc basis, in addition to the comments and documents that get added as part of a formal structured process. The next step, I'm going to log in as some of those project users who actually work on the project and manage the project. So we've got Chad, who's doing the project specification, and remember, Sean's the project manager. All these variables were defined inside of Project Server. So logged onto the portal now, I can see a few things have changed since I was last here. Chad, remember there are 3 tasks associated to this particular project, but being logged in as Chad, I'm only responsible for doing the documentation. And there's an area on which I can see and find any information related to this particular project. So there's one open project, and I can also see here it's open. And if I go into that particular project, what I'll find is everything that I'll need to work on this particular project. So for example, I know when I get a piece of work, I want to see, for example, the specifications around this project. So within this area, we provisioned, this is a site that we've actually provisioned inside of SharePoint, taking on a particular template. So the look and feel of the site is obviously customized to your particular requirements. So on this site, the areas that are applicable to me are, for example, the tasks that I have related to the project, surfaced through the work list. An area for being able to track and visualize all the project tasks. So even though I'm only associated to doing the documentation, I can see and follow up with Erica if I want to communicate and do a handover regarding the documentation. And in the same respect, Erica can do a handover to Holly. As people comment on their particular items, that will all get categorized within the project comments, and any documentation related to any stage will also come into this particular area. So let's, for example, say I want to go and add a new document, and I've drawn up the specification and I want to add it to the project site. I can go ahead and browse and add some documentation, once again a file in any format. And you'll notice when I upload this document, K2 has already provisioned the metadata about items being uploaded, so we can categorize it based on those tasks that we defined inside of Project Server. So this is the project name. So does the documentation related to the project or a particular task? So obviously this is related to documentation. So I can find information a lot easier. So that is specific based on information that you defined inside of Project Server, and that's already been provisioned by the K2 process. So I've uploaded some documentation. There we go. I can see all the information associated to the documentation phase. I can put version and control behind this, so if there is to be collaboration and changes between myself and my manager, I can track those changes using the out-of-the-box SharePoint functionality. Here's the project outline, which was uploaded earlier, and I could have drawn up the specification based on that outline. We can also visualize the information however we want. So for example, as a manager, it's quite nice to see the stages indented based on which stage relates to which stage. So there's that sort of parent-child relationship. So all these are just child of the projects, but we can sort of indent it and show a percentage complete and whether any of the tasks have escalated visually. It's also a nice key performance indicator, so just a nice high-level overview as to how the project is performing. And here's some ad hoc actions, which you can increase these ad hoc actions. They're any tasks that a user can take based on the stage that they're at within the process. So I often like to see this as a phased implementation, whereby as user requirements come in, they say, wouldn't it be nice if we could, for example, log an issue against a task? That's an ad hoc action against the project or the task. Wouldn't it be nice if we could cancel the project at any stage? and only certain users can cancel the project. So once again, we could take that almost through another process, but it relates to this parent process. So I'm going to go ahead and action this task. Remember, at all these reports and this visualization that you're seeing here is just complementing and visualizing the health and managing the project more effectively. All I need to do to progress anything at any one time is always just click on the item in my work list. K2 will bring up the page, load all the information for me to progress this item to completion. So I feel that this is 100% complete, this phase, and I find no need to escalate it to amber or red. And I could have at this stage even reallocated this task to another user. Maybe we'll do that a bit later. And we'll just say documentation went well. And I've now completed it. If it was just an update and I was, for example, updating the percentage complete, that I could make an update action. So I've now done the documentation. In real life, Erica would now have a task. So let's log in as Erica. And Erica needs to implement the solution. So she should have a task on her work list. And once again, Erica can access all the documentation with or task information through, once again, that collaboration area by clicking on the item. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click on this item. Let's say we were on site already with the customer and I had all the information already and I've gone about doing the work I needed to do. In this instance, I'm going to get 75% of the way complete, and I'm going to just notify Sean. I'm going to actually assign the task to Sean, my project manager, and say, look, I'm just not in a position to complete this item. Can you find someone to review implementation? Maybe you got really far, but we need someone to just review what's done. So I'm going to make an update there. So what will actually happen is that the task has been reallocated to another user. So users are empowered to reallocate items, but we can put some level of control over that. So Sean, the project manager, will have an item on his work list to manage that particular item that's now 75% complete. So we can see here within our project site, and you notice when I actually clicked on that item on my work list, we redirected the user to the project site automatically. I can see that Chad has completed his step, and Sean is 75% complete. It's not actually 100% complete because we almost need it to be signed off by the project manager. So the project manager wants to review every step that when it is completed. So let's have a look now and log in as Sean, the project manager. So he defined this project and he's getting tasks notifying him that people are working on the project. So I can see, for example, I need to review the documentation. And if I actually go into the project center of Microsoft Projects Server, this is how I like to visualize projects using the out-of-the-box tooling. If we go, and you'll notice this project is actually now sort of being completed by our users. So you can see that K2 is reading project information, but it's also writing back and updating the project items. So the documentation is now 100% complete. Implementing the solution is 75% complete. So that's showing you the read and write nature and capabilities of those wizards. So I can just work through the items on my work list. So I'm going to go ahead and review the documentation. So let's go now and click on that task. So here I can go in and have a look at the work that Chad undertook for the documentation, and make a decision that I'm happy that he doesn't have to rework anything. I can see he said that documentation went well. I could go into the project area and go and find that documentation, and I can write here comments and give him some feedback and say good work, and action that task. So as you can see now, there's sign off. I mean, if users know that they're going to be actively managed, nothing's going to slip through the gap. I think what you'll find is that your consultants, even someone who draws up documentation, they'll do a better job knowing that a manager is proactively his task is to review those items to have final sign-off. So here for implementing the solution, if I click on this item and I'm wondering why is this item being allocated to me, I just double click on it. We get taken to the project site, and so I can find any and all that documentation. Here I can see it's green. I don't feel a need to mark it as amber, but I'm just going to do it for the demonstration, and let's just say I have taken ownership and reviewed work, and I'll mark it as 100% complete. That's you did a good job on site with the customer. So action that task, and we can build in rules. For example, if for example a manager can't approve his own tasks, so what happens in that circumstance? And that's sort of where I say phase 2 and 3 to extend the solution is completely possible around your particular requirements. So here, for example, now, and what you'll notice has happened is that the project had some predefined service level agreements. It's actually specified a hard value that each item needed to be completed. Just for this demonstration, I said 10 minutes, but obviously in real life it would take into account the end dates. So I implemented this to Amber, but the process has already escalated that the testing is now overdue, just based on that SLA that I defined. So I can see, for example, the project is red, the individual items still maintain their KPIs. So I can see this is what caused the particular project to go red. And at a high level, I've got that indication that something's wrong with this particular project. So let's go and finish the testing, and I would obviously follow up with Holly and find out what's happening with the testing if of course something was wrong. So Holly's now had a phone call from me. She's going to prioritize this item. So let's go and log into her site, complete the testing of the solution, and update the fact that we've completed that piece of work. So here we're logged in as Holly, and we can see there's an open project, and I need to get this project back on track. So let me go and complete my piece of work. Click on my task. K2 directs me to the project portal. If I just go and actually cancel this for one step, you'll notice that as we've been going along, all our documentation is accessible to Holly. I can see how the documentation has gone up until that particular point, so I don't have to, even if there wasn't time to do a handover with the particular users involved in the project up until this particular point, I can see at a very high level any of the correspondence between the project implementation people as well as the project managers. So here the documentation went well, and manager Sean said good work, so I'm thinking okay, everything's looking great here. I can see Erica needed to find someone to review the implementation, and Sean took ownership of that and completed it. I need to obviously complete my work, so let me go ahead and test the solution. So here I can say I've tested it, everything's looking good. Let's change this item to green. I'm happy that everything's on track, the customer's happy, and I can say customer is happy with the solution. Action that task. Sean will obviously need to, as the project manager, maybe he wants to just give the customer a call. It's always nice managing a successful project. So I will go ahead as Sean now, as Holly's manager, and log in. I will have been notified through the usual channels, email, SMS, that items were complete, so I can follow up timelessly. So maybe even Holly's still on site, and I'm following up while she's there. So if there are any sort of disputes, I'm so on top of things that I can manage those effectively. So here, logged in as Sean, I need to review the fact that implementing went well. That was the one I completed. So I'm just going to go and action that and complete it directly from my work list. And that sort of functionality is out of the box, whereby we can sort of batch approve tasks. And here I want to review how the testing went for that particular project. So I'm actually going to click on this item just to see any of the comments. if it is a customer that I know. And this is where it's nice to use some of the K2's got a lot of integration capabilities with the likes of CRM. We could bring and surface customer information directly into these forms if we went that far. So here, customer's happy with the solution. I gave them a call. I'm just going to sign it off, and I'm going to say, great, Holly, another good job done. Well done. So that's been completed. Maybe you could even sort of rate the performance of these items and tie it into your appraisal process. So we often use K2 for the likes of appraisals. So why not have appraisals based on projects and tasks that you work on day to day, so that at the end of the year, you actually have been rated based on the work you've done, not just based on the last project that maybe didn't go well, and that's affected your whole rating based on your year's worth of work, which you know is not the case. So this particular project will now move into a closed state. K2 is going to update project server. It's going to update the resourcing and all those graphs out of the box. So now that it's closed, you'll notice the actions have changed. Whereas before I could have assigned issues to cases, I can now start a project improvement process, which is around the lessons that we learned from this project. Or maybe I want to reopen this project because everything's now locked down, and reopen one of the items. I've also got what we refer to as a business audit. So even though the project's closed, I can see the steps and stages that this project went through. So I can see, for example, that someone uploaded documentation. It was reviewed by Sean. The process escalated the items to red because of the time escalation that went. And I can see how it was managed from when it was created to when it was closed. And that's sort of business audit level. I can write any ad hoc information to this business audit, even if people view, delete documents regarding this particular project. So hopefully that's given you a flavor as to how we can use K2 in conjunction with Project Server to bring projects that you've defined outside of Project Server to life, take them through some formal project methodology to have people collaborate on projects, as well as manage them in a structured fashion so that there is sign off. And if, for example, there was ever a problem or dispute, we can see who performed what task and the reason why people made decisions at steps within inside of the particular process. We've even got a more granular audit trail for particular projects, whereby we can see duration to the second as to how long people took at particular tasks. We can also visualize the steps of the process through what we call the K2 view flow. And this is where I can access those more granular reports. We also have a trend and bottleneck type analysis based on the out-of-the-box functionality, whereby we can manage processes inside of process portals directly inside of SharePoint. So I can see what stages take longer than others and which users are performing longer than others as well. So, for example, user performance could be an interesting one. I know for where people actually have to action and perform their tasks, we can analyze how long particular stages take for documentation, for implementation, for a particular set process as well. And this is also, once again, just out of the box reports provided by K2, where you can actually specify the date range of the information that you want to mine on and visualize graphically. All these reports are built on top of SQL reporting services. So we get the out of the box functionality where we can sort of zoom in, export, and here I can see Chad takes the longest when he does documentation, and I can see how long he takes on those particular items. So maybe I need to help Chad and assign another resource at that particular stage if I want my processes to perform more efficiently.